Have you ever just stopped and wondered how the world around you, well, works? I mean, from the phone in your hand to the very roads you drive on, somebody provides all this stuff. But who's really running the show? Okay, let's get into it.
Seriously, just think about your morning. You probably grabbed a coffee from a private cafe, drove on a public road, maybe dropped your kids off at a state school, and now you're working for a private company. So, who's in charge here? The answer, it turns out, is a lot more complicated and a whole lot more interesting than you might think.
And these images perfectly capture the two big forces at play. On one hand, you've got things like groceries in a supermarket, stuff that private businesses sell to make a profit. And on the other hand, you have a service like policing, which is paid for by the government for the good of everyone. This is the fundamental split we're going to dig into, the private world versus the public world.
Right, so to really wrap our heads around this, we have to understand these two different worlds that make up a modern economy, the public sector and the private sector. And believe me, they play by completely different rulebooks and have totally different end goals.
So what's the core difference? Well, the private sector is all about businesses owned by individuals or groups, and their number one motivation? Profit. Simple as that. If an idea isn't going to make money, it's probably not going to happen. The public sector, though, that's the government. Its job isn't to make cash, it's to provide the essential services that we all rely on. You know, things like schools, healthcare, and national defense.
So that begs the question, why not just let the private sector run everything? Well, it's because sometimes that single-minded focus on profit can cause some pretty serious problems for society. And this is a huge concept in economics. It's called market failure. It's that moment when a business, just by chasing its own profit, ends up creating a result that's actually bad for everyone else. And that, right there, is the main reason governments step in. This quote is a perfect example of a major cause of market failure. It's something called an externality. So imagine a factory. It might be super profitable making its chemicals, but if it's dumping pollution into the air and water, who pays for that? We all do. We pay with our health, with a damaged environment. That's a massive cost that doesn't show up on the company's books, but it's a huge bill for the public.
And then you've got this whole other category of things that the private sector just won't touch, mainly because there's no way to make money off them. We call these public goods. I mean, think about it. Could a company really sell you your own personal patch of street lighting? It's just not going to work.
And here's why. Public goods have two very special characteristics. First, they're non-excludable. You literally can't stop someone from using them. A street light shines on everybody, whether they paid for it or not. Second, they're non-rivalrous. One person being protected by the police doesn't mean there's less protection available for their neighbor. So, how in the world do you charge for that?
Which leads us straight to the classic free rider problem. I'm sure we've all seen this in action, right? It's like that one person in a group project who does zero work but gets the same A+ as everyone else. If a private company tried to build a park and just asked for donations, a lot of people would probably use the swings and just hope someone else foots the bill.
Okay, so if a purely private, hands-off system can fail in these pretty big ways, and a purely government-run system, well, we know that has its own issues. What's the answer? Well, almost every modern country has landed somewhere in the middle. Let's take a look.
And here it is, the mixed economy. This isn't some fringe idea. It's actually the practical solution that most of the world uses. It's a system that tries to get the best of both worlds. You get the creativity and drive of the private sector, but you also have the government there to fix the market's mistakes and provide those essential things for everybody.
You know, every single society, no matter what, has to answer three basic questions. What are we going to make? How are we going to make it? And who gets the stuff we make? A mixed economy's answer is basically both. Businesses produce the stuff we want to buy, and the government provides the services we all need. Businesses chase efficiency to make a profit, and the government makes sure there's a safety net for people who fall on hard times.
But, and this is a really important but, there's no one-size-fits-all formula for a mixed economy. That mix is the subject of constant, massive debate, and it looks totally different depending on where you are in the world. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Just look at the difference here. In a place like Singapore, the government is only spending about 10% of the country's total income. The private sector is clearly in the driver's seat. Then you swing all the way over to France, where the government is behind a massive 57% of spending. Now, both are successful economies, right? But they have completely different philosophies. A low-spend country might have lower taxes, but you're probably paying more out of pocket for services. A high-spend country means higher taxes, but a much bigger social safety net.
This chart just hammers home that this is a spectrum, not an either-or choice. You've got countries like the US and South Korea somewhere in the middle, while Finland is way up there with France. Every single nation is constantly making its own calculation, its own trade-off, trying to find that sweet spot between individual freedom and collective security.
So, all of this brings us to the big final takeaway. The argument over what the perfect mix should be, it's never really over.
And that's the key thing to remember. The mixed economy isn't some final answer that we've all agreed on. It's more like a constant negotiation, a balancing act. Every society is always arguing and rethinking where to draw that line between what the market should do and what the government has to do. It's a living, breathing thing that reflects what a country truly values.
And that leaves us with the biggest question of all. As we face these gigantic new challenges, we're talking about everything from climate change to the rise of AI. This debate is only going to get more urgent. What is the right role for government, and what is the right role for business in shaping the world of tomorrow? Well, that's a question we're all going to have to answer together.